What is going on, everybody? Welcome into Studs and Duds Week. For those that might be new to this series or just need a little bit of a reminder, Studs and Duds is one of my original series. It is a comprehensive NFL player review series. And this goes all the way back to 2016 when I first started my channel. You may or may not know this channel actually got its start as a Madden channel. And while I no longer do Madden stuff on this channel, though when I have time, I do stream on Twitch and do rebuilds on my other YouTube channel, TFG Plays, if you want to go check that out. But while there's no more Madden on this channel, I do still make my own custom community roster where I edit all of the ratings to be what I consider more realistic, more accurate. As we know, EA's ratings can be a bit wacky. And then through the lens of Studs and Duds, I'm able to talk about all of the changes I made, why I made those changes, and while we're looking at this through the lens of those Madden ratings, it does show how I perceive these players in real life, and it actually gives us a really cool way to look at all of the rising and falling players around the league. So that is what Studs and Duds is all about. And as I set out for this season, this series is going to be coming in trimesters this year. So this is obviously our first trimester after week 7. Then we will have another wave of Studs and Duds either after week 13 or 14, depending on my schedule. I'll have to let you guys know in the future what week that will be. And then at the very end of the season as well. And in those weeks, I won't have time for my regular scheduled content like the power rankings or the weekly recap episodes of the Fully Inflated Football podcast. If you were wondering where those were at this week, won't be there this week. We'll be back at it next week. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I do ask if you guys could please take just a second to hit that like button. This series does take a ton of work and definitely tends to be the least rewarding in terms of views and monetization. So if everyone watching this could hit that like button, that might change and I would really appreciate it. It takes just a second, so let's get those like numbers up. It really does help. But now let's go ahead and get started. And today for the NFC West, going alphabetically, we will start with the Arizona Cardinals, whose super stud, call it the highest riser, the biggest riser, the guy I want to highlight the most, whatever you want to consider this to be. I have left tackle Paris Johnson, their top draft pick from last season. And there's really not even too much to say about this because I think we can all agree when the Cardinals came back up in the first round of the draft last year to make Paris Johnson the first offensive tackle off the board last year, he had crazy potential coming into the league. The size, the athleticism, the length, the tape, it was all just so good for him. And as most, rookie tackles will have, especially in Paris Johnson's case, where he was going back over to the right side. He had played a little bit of right in college, but had just been getting comfortable on the left. He goes back to the right side for the Cardinals, and he wasn't bad in his rookie year, but he did have his ups and downs as a rookie. This wasn't a, Tristan Wirfs or Rashawn Slater situation where he came in like an all-pro right away. But man, sliding back to the left side of the line, he's been so impressive. Not just in pass protection, where I think he's cleaned up some of his technique. He always kind of struggled with the reaction time to cut off inside counters, was like the one thing he had to work on. Have not seen him really lose to inside counters this year. But the run blocking that I thought was really underrated at Ohio State, it's really come onto the scene here for the Cardinals. The Cardinals have this great run game, and Paris has been leading the way on a lot of these wide zone blocks, climbing to the second level, getting these linebackers. So, yeah, he definitely seems like he's on a, kind of all-pro type of trajectory, which I definitely thought was in his potential. Maybe putting the cart before the horse a little bit here, but just things have been really smooth sailing for Paris Johnson. He's probably next to James Conner, or maybe even ahead of James Conner, been the most consistent part of this Cardinals offense and team because their defense stinks. But let's talk a little bit more about that offense. James Conner is going to go up +1, just continues to be so impressive at age 29. Probably still underrated because people love the speed, right? Well, he's maybe the slowest starting running back in the league, but he is one of the most effective ones. He's again, leading the league in missed tackles forced. I think he was third in that last year. But they're just fully leaning into him here. They drafted Trey Benson in the third round, and they're like, well, we don't even really have a need to use Trey Benson or DeMarcado, Mike Carter, who did some stuff last year at the back end of the year. He's like on the practice squad, and they're just like, yeah, James Conner, you're a bell cow. We're going to feed you. He's doing stuff in the receiving game too. He's a leader for the team. He's just been absolutely fantastic, deserves all the love in the world. I hope he gets his accolades at the end of the year. I hope the fan voting doesn't lean more towards maybe more explosive guys, not taking shots at guys maybe like Jahmyr Gibbs or Kenneth Walker having really good years. But James Conner's just been a better overall running back than those guys and is producing higher. So I hope when all is said and done, he gets his love, assuming he keeps this up. And Trey Benson, one of my favorite players in this draft class, one of my biggest my guys, has actually been disappointing. Now, this is coming from my own perspective, right? A 75 overall for a third-round pick. I was really high on Trey Benson, and to this point, he hasn't hit the ground running, pun unintended, to the efficiency that I would have imagined. I knew he wasn't going to have a large work share as long as James Conner was here, but even when he's gotten his touches, I think he's at like 3.6 yards per carry. He just seems to be a little bit hesitant at times. I don't know. He just hasn't passed the eye test quite yet. I still very much believe in Trey Benson, but obviously he's got a ways to go before he can make my Trey Benson RB1 take come true in the future. But what's more surprising is that Marvin Harrison Jr. just hasn't been that dude. This felt like the biggest of a dream fit for a top wide receiver prospect to come in as a clear-cut wide receiver one with an established quarterback. And Marvin Harrison, with the tape he had, the production he had at Ohio State, the bloodlines, like I think everybody agreed, this is like one of the best prospects ever. Like seriously, I know it sounds wild a few months removed from the draft, but that was really the consensus opinion on Marvin Harrison, is that this guy is a can't miss, like day one Pro Bowl type of talent. And he's had his moments for sure. I mean, that Rams game, we all stood up, started clapping, and we're like, all right, great. Week one was a blip, because week one, I don't even think he had a reception week one. But week two against the Rams, it was like, all right, there he is. But unfortunately, he kind of disappeared after that. And it's not just that they aren't targeting him. There has been a little bit of frustration with his usage and maybe a lack of creative ways to get him involved. But at the same time, it's like he wasn't supposed to be the guy you have to get creative with. The reason he was such a great fit is that they do get creative with all these other pieces. Marvin should be the guy out there beating corners, winning one-on-one routes, winning tough catches. And that's been the biggest frustration for me with Marvin Harrison, is he's not coming down with the balls he would come down with at Ohio State. I think the biggest thing that got me to want to lower Marvin Harrison here for this series is the sideline catch against the Chargers on Monday Night Football, where he draws the personal foul that was a questionable call. But that's the catch he made at Ohio State every single week. And he's getting that high leverage target from Kyler Murray, throwing it towards the sideline, trusting him to secure the catch, come down with it, take the hit, whatever. And if you're not being that dude, then you got to come down for it, because that's what we expected. The ratings got to come down for it, because that's what we expected him to be out the gate. So I still believe in Marvin Harrison. 80 rating is still a highly respectable spot for him. And it's not that he's doing nothing. It's just that he isn't thriving. So that's where we're at with Marv. And then another rookie here, Tip Raymond, is going to go up +2, 65 to a 67. And he's just blocking his ass off. That's what he did at Illinois. He's not a guy that gets the ball a ton, though I think there's room for them to do that with him, because he is a freak. But they did bring him in to be that blocker for 12 personnel. He has been a big contributor to their run game. He's playing a lot for a rookie. So he stood out in that phase. And then Elijah Higgins as well, the other tight end that they get in the mix as kind of that receiving specialist. He's one of those dudes that they find some of those creative targets for, and he's been converting them. He's got a couple touchdowns this year. Nice role player for what he is. And then onto the offensive line, besides Paris Johnson, Hjalti Froholt has continue to climb. He's been such a good pickup, bringing him over with Drew Petzing from Cleveland. He's a stud in the run game, a great wide zone blocker, and his pass blocking efficiency feels like it keeps getting a little bit better incrementally year by year. So he's just a really nice starting center. Wouldn't be surprised if I don't know off the top of my head what his contract situation is. They may have given him a sneaky good extension recently, but could be due for one of these contracts that comes in like, oh, wow, Hjalti Froholt, 3 years, $35 million. Didn't see that coming, but you heard it here first. Evan Brown at left guard has had a bit of a bounce back year. He struggled in Seattle last year. He really did, but has been really good in pass protection. Perhaps the best he's been in pass pro in his career here. So, nothing crazy here, 67 to a 69, but he's going up. And then Tristan Colon has stepped in at right guard. This is a guy we talked about in the deep dive series for the Cardinals as kind of a sneaky guy to keep an eye on. Was an undrafted pickup by the Ravens. Hasn't played much in his career, but when he has played, he's shown some flashes. And Will Hernandez has missed some time at right guard over the last couple of weeks. And Colon has come in and really blocked his ass off in the run game. Been a little bit more hit or miss with the pass protection. He struggled more against the Packers and held up much better against a lesser talented Chargers interior. But yeah, someone to keep an eye on. I felt like he's always had the talent, has played well in opportunities, and kind of the example of why we do this series. You can kind of hear about these under the radar players that maybe someday could emerge. But then onto the defensive side of the ball, they're not playing great on this side of the ball, but when you have all of these like lowly rated players getting playing time, guys coming in from other teams, all that kind of stuff, eventually some of these guys are going to get opportunities and play well within their own right. And LJ Collier is a great example of that. Former first-round pick by the Seahawks, one of the bigger busts in the last 5-10 years. Just a complete reach, never did anything for Seattle really. But 5-6 years into his career here, he's landed with a new system. The Cardinals love that sort of hybrid end type. That's exactly why they spent a first-round pick on Darius Robinson. They like a guy that can get in between the tackle and the guard and split gaps and cause chaos that way. And LJ Collier's been able to do that for them. He's a total tweener type, has bounced between edge and defensive tackle in Seattle, but really a good fit in Arizona. He actually leads the team in pressures right now, which is more of an indictment on the Cardinals, but again, Collier at least doing something with that first-round pedigree. And then Dante Stills just continues to be a really good role player in that exact role we just described, that tweener defensive end. Not a splashy player, not going to light up the box score or anything, but continues to hold up against the run very well. Had a very good game against the Chargers, in my opinion. Also showed up as a rusher, got a sack in that game. But yeah, I mean, he's a limited player in terms of size and tools, but just a scrappy player that definitely I could see being a nice role player for this team for an extended period of time. He was one of their best, if not their best, D lineman last year as well. Pretty nice find there in the 6th round. And then Naquan Jones, one of these pickups that they found on the chopping block, has contributed to their run defense in recent weeks, being a bit of a pleasant surprise for the Cardinals. And not too much more to add on Naquan out of Michigan State. But then Khyiris Tonga, I do really like Khyiris Tonga. I just don't understand why he hasn't stuck on a team. Bears, Vikings, maybe this time around the Cardinals, who just desperately could use any semblance of a building block on that defensive line. He's massive. He's got a great anchor. He defends the run every time he plays. I just don't get what there's not to love about Khyiris Tonga for the role that he plays. And he's even had a couple pressures kind of push in the pocket too when he is out there for pass rush downs. It's not often, but he's a nice player. He's a really nice pickup for the Cardinals. Then we bounce out to the edge. It's been a rough go for these edge rushers. Zaven Collins, however, very fascinating player, right? Came into the league as a top, what was he, the 15th overall pick as a linebacker, an off-ball linebacker. They move him to edge linebacker, kind of to be their Andrew Van Ginkel, their Kyle Van Noy as that kind of hybrid guy that can drop into coverage, set a hard edge, bring that linebacker background to the edge room. And he's totally done that. He's been a dominant run-defending edge player. Teams have not been able to get the perimeter on him. He's able to drop into coverage where that was honestly his biggest redeeming factor as an off-ball linebacker was his coverage feel in zone. And they drop him into the edge, and he's able to take away stuff that most edge rushers can't. And those two things together have made him a very nice player for them to have. But as you also might have expected, like his whole pass rushing background is mostly just as a blitzer, and he just doesn't really have the pass rushing tool belt. I mean, I think he's shown like he's a hard nosed player. He's got some athletic tools. There's a world where he develops more of a pass rushing profile, and look at one of those comps there, Kyle Van Noy. You could say a similar thing about Andrew Van Ginkel. Like those guys weren't great efficient pass rushers early on in their edge roles, but I mean Kyle Van Noy is like, he has a multitude of ways that he beats guys as a rusher now. So maybe in time, 2-3 years from now, that can come along. But right now, he has just 10 pressures, 1 sack on 105 pass rush snaps, a PFF pass rush grade of 56.8. Like he's just not winning those one-on-one reps when he gets pressures. It's as a looper on a stunt, or going unblocked, that kind of stuff. So that part of it hasn't come along, but that doesn't mean he isn't a really useful player for early down work. And to, when they do blitz, he's a really nice piece because you can drop him out of any variety of alignment. And, they treat him like an edge, but he basically has he literally has the coverage ability of a normal linebacker, if not a good linebacker. Like he was a good coverage linebacker, in my opinion. But on the opposite side, they've been scrambling to find anybody to contribute. They picked up Julian Okwara. Again, I like some of the pickups that this Cardinals front office is making off the chopping block, especially like Kyrus Tonga, Julian Okwara. We'll talk about Mac Wilson. Like they're finding some dudes in spots that they desperately need some roster talent. And, I think Okwara is not going to be a starter. He just isn't the most traitsy guy. He's pretty small. He's not like overly athletic, doesn't have a lot of power or anything like that. But similar to Zaven Collins in that he is really crafty, dropping into coverage. He's a really nice looper on stunts. He's been a pretty good run defender for them. This is a third-round pick for the Lions that just never really got an opportunity. And I think he can emerge as a piece for this edge group, a rotational piece, and already kind of has. And then another pickup I like from this group is Mac Wilson. Really popped to me when I was prepping the Patriots deep dive. He was their third linebacker who basically forced his way into the lineup for New England. And he's just really impressive. And what's crazy about Mac Wilson is I feel like we've known about him. He was like a 5th-round pick for the Browns out of Alabama that a lot of people liked. And he just never really got a huge opportunity in Cleveland. His run defense was really all over the place. And then he goes to New England as a role player, doesn't really play there. I think he spent a couple years in New England. So this is like his 5th year in the league, 5th or 6th year in the league, but he's only 26 years old. So like he's not that much older than some of these linebackers coming out of the draft these days. So for a position that often takes time for guys to get up to speed, I mean this could be real for Mac Wilson. He's got a ton of athletic traits. He's bulked up and is just defending the run in a way that he never did, especially going back to Cleveland. His biggest selling point has always been good kind of coverage instincts. He's a guy that's had a lot of interceptions per capita, if you will, per snap. And he blitzes his ass off, too. Like, I really like Mac Wilson. He's just kind of starting to get this breakout. But as you watch the Cardinals, keep an eye on number 2. I mean, he's a pretty nice player. I wouldn't be overly surprised if a year or two we're talking about Mac Wilson as, like a legit dude, like a top 15 type of linebacker kind of guy, if not more. He's just really stood out to me. So a big +3 for Mac Wilson. He probably was the other super stud candidate for this team for me. But let's talk about this secondary if we have to. Sean Murphy-Bunting's really struggled. He has not been a good pickup off the chopping block for this front office. Just getting burnt left and right. And oftentimes when he does get burnt, he's either giving up catches or committing really ugly penalties where he's way out of position, just hack and slash and hoping he doesn't get called. Well, he's been getting called for most of them. He just hasn't been good for a while now. You go back to Tennessee, he struggled last year too. So to me, he looks like he's maybe lost a little bit of a step from the young player he was coming in for Tampa, where he was a really good third corner for them. But just, he hasn't found a good system fit, hasn't played well within his own play, and just he's got to come down. He's probably not a starting caliber player at this point, honestly. But it's not all bad in the secondary. Garrett Williams continues to play really well. I'm still fascinated why they see him as a slot corner. His coverage has been pretty good from the slot, so he definitely gets credit for that. That's why he's going up +3 this week. But since he's played for the Cardinals, he's been in the slot, which was not what he did at Syracuse. He was more of an outside, top-down zone corner type of guy, which is the type of system they run here, and I thought that's why they drafted him, was to play outside corners. So, and Sean Murphy-Bunting has had some of his best play in the slot, so I'm curious if they maybe make an adjustment there, because it's not like what Garrett Williams is doing from a coverage perspective couldn't translate outside. And inversely, Garrett Williams has not been all perfect. He's missed a ton of tackles. He's already missed 6 tackles this year, 25% of his tackle attempts. And his run defense has not been good for them. And that really isn't his profile. He's like 5'11", 190. Like he's kind of built more like an outside corner. So that's something to keep an eye on. But again, his coverage has been really good. He's looking like a nice find for them. And it's still kind of impressive that he won a starting job, because they took this shotgun approach with all these different guys. You got Max Melton, you got Elijah Jones, you've got Sean Murphy-Bunting to beat out. So there's been a lot of guys to vie for playing time, and Garrett Williams has been a solidified starter for them. Has definitely been a nice player from a coverage perspective. He's put himself in position to make some plays. He's got a couple pass breakups, an interception this year. So yeah, +3 for Mr. Williams. And then our guy, Star Thomas, the guy that stood out to me the most when I went out to the Shrine Bowl in Vegas a couple years ago. I had like a 3rd to a 4th round grade on Star Thomas. I thought he was going to be like a really frisky NFL corner, maybe never a superstar, but I put a Darius Williams comp on him, coming out of the same school too. And here we go. He's playing outside corner in a top-down Fangio-style zone defense. That's very Darius Williams-y. So I'm not saying he's there. He's got a long ways to go, but he's shown a lot of flashes of what a young Darius Williams did. Very similar kind of pedigree where he had to work his way up. So, the groundwork has been laid for that. He's putting up the production. He's getting his hands on the ball. Couple nice pass breakups this year, and he's tackling really well. So he does seem comfortable from that outside corner alignment. Really impressive, again, for him to beat out some of those names we just mentioned, some higher drafted, higher invested guys for the Cardinals. He's beat those guys out as an undrafted pickup that they had to bring in from, what did he start in Detroit and couldn't make the team there because they had a bunch of nickel guys. But yeah, he's found a good spot and a fun player to round out our Arizona Cardinals. But let's move on to the San Francisco 49ers. Their super stud was a very easy choice. Jordan Mason getting this opportunity to start for the Niners. And it's been a case of, I'm sorry, Jordan Mason, I wasn't familiar with your game. Holy hell, this dude's explosive. Like, a guy that big shouldn't have as good of a first step and that effective of a speed train running style. He's been an absolute handful from like his very first snap against the Jets, where he had his breakout performance, but he's kept it up. He's got the vision. He's a real dude. And this is year 3 for Mason. I think the Niners have one more year of cheap control on him if they do an RFA type of tender on him. But I don't know that that's going to be a particularly cheap tender based on his production this year. Could be a guy that goes elsewhere and is like, a top 10, top 15 running back. Like, he really passes the eye test, and he really always has. It's been like, when he's played, it's been like, okay, it's the fourth quarter, they're up by 20, and he's coming in against a defeated defense. It's just a little different when you're starting games off in the way that he has, and producing the way that he has. So just a huge boost for Jordan Mason, +8 from a 72 like solid backup rating to 80 overall, which is like a good running back. And I only imagine he's going to get another big boost before our next episode. But there's only so much you can go up in a 6-7 week span based on my process. But then Brock Purdy, as we start with the offense, is going to go up one. It's tough. He's coming off his worst game here against the Chiefs, but he just has looked really good to me. I mean, he really is one of the best play extending quarterbacks in the league. We know the in-structure stuff is pretty damn good for him, though I think you could argue he's leaning a little bit too much towards the play extension and away from the in-structure stuff, but he still has countless play action, timing, accurate throws over the middle as well. And, there's a lot of talk about, Purdy's just a product of the system, blah, blah, blah. Well, this year, we're getting to see Brock Purdy kind of with a more normal cast. He hasn't had Christian McCaffrey. Debo and Ayuk have been in and out of the lineup. Ayuk's done for the year. And even when Ayuk has played, as you'll see down below, he hasn't been this premium wide receiver. So it's not like he's got some superstar offensive line. I'm not saying it's a bad situation, but it's at least a humanized one, and he's playing really freaking well within it. I think he's just a good quarterback, y'all. So +1 for Brock Purdy. But there are going to be a few guys falling for this Niners offense where it hasn't all been rainbows and butterflies. We got to go back to where the season started. Elijah Mitchell, this is always tough when a guy keeps getting hurt. It's not like he's shown anything on the field where his ratings should drop, but I do think it's going to be a long road for recovery for Elijah Mitchell, just to be able to prove that he can stay healthy as well. So I did want to lower him. Well, I didn't want to lower him, but just based on the amount of injuries, I felt I had to a little bit. But Brandon Ayuk, yeah, he's coming down. I mean, he's had some really uncharacteristic drops. He hasn't been super dynamic after the catch. He's had some big plays, but last year he was 6th in the NFL in yards per route run, way up at 2.6. Way down this year, 37th in the league in yards per route run, 1.74. Just the dude has not been what they paid him to be, and now he suffers the massive knee injuries. So he's got a long road to recovery and to get back to the level as well that he played at last season. It's really, really bad news for the Niners. No way around it. But good news is Juwan Jennings is sweet. What was it, the Rams game where he had what will probably be the wide receiver performance of the year. It's possible someone could break it. But holy hell, I didn't know he had that in him. 11 catches on 12 targets for 175 yards, 3 touchdowns, just mossing dudes down the field, 5 for 6 on contested catch looks. That's just not the way we've talked about Juwan Jennings. We've talked about Juwan Jennings as the thorn in opposing defense's side, the guy that works underneath, really tough to bring down after the catch, and an excellent blocker, but not a guy that's getting down the field as a jump ball receiver for Brock Purdy. So just to know that it's in there somewhere is really special for Jennings, and at least a positive for his sake is he's got an opportunity now to kind of prove that he's more than just a wide receiver 3. I'm very curious to see what type of added role he gets with Ayuk hurt. Debo's been on and off the field as he tends to be, and they don't know if they have Ricky Pearsall yet, so. Yeah, he's just a really good football player, man. He always has been, but he just continues to check a lot of boxes. So +2 for Jennings. On the flip side, Ronnie Bell, I'm honestly a little surprised he's still on the team. -2 for Ronnie Bell, and he was already a 67 overall. He's just, you can't put him out there, man. He loses them that Rams game with two critical drops, and led to another interception for Brock Purdy on a miscommunication last week against the Chiefs. He doesn't know what he's doing out there. He can't catch the ball. He's not even that good of a route runner or that athletic, so I don't get why he's getting playing time for this team at this point. But let's talk about the offensive line. They've actually been pretty solid. I mean, this is kind of what they do, is they take guys that have struggled and, fell in the draft, blah, 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 and eventually within this system, they get guys to play better. And that's kind of been the case for their O-line. They've definitely not been perfect, but they've played solid. On the right side of the line, Colton McKivitz. This is more about the run blocking. He's been a big part of Jordan Mason's success. A lot of those runs to the right, he's clearing guys out, sealing that perimeter. He's very good at that. And even from a pass protection standpoint, they do shelter him a lot with play action, but they've gotten into a lot more drop back passing game stuff. And he's I would say he's had more good reps against good pass rushers than he ever has. He still has those ugly losses. His anchor is still really bad. I don't trust him. I don't think he's a great right tackle, but a +1 for him. He's been pretty okay for them, for Colton McKivitt's standards. And then Dominique Puny, huge draft hit for them. God, did they desperately need this, because they don't have a lot of guard options as Jordan Feliciano's out right now. 4th round pick for Dominique Puny, and he's just been the perfect fit. The Niners do run a lot of wide zone, but they do also love to pull these guards and run power. And Pooney's really good at that. Like he deletes guys in the run game on the move, and it's been a huge asset for them. He's been very week to week in terms of pass protection, but he's been better than I thought he would be coming out of Kansas in that phase too. So +5 for Dominique Puny. Definitely a guy that, as the season goes on, he could be one of those kind of like breakout superstar guys that climbed like 10, 11, 12 overall within a year, which is about as much as you can do in this series for me. But then at left guard, Aaron Banks, he's been better than he ever has been in a contract year here, I believe. Still very up and down in pass protection, but finally putting that size to work as a run blocker, not falling off blocks as much, not having as many of those negatively graded blocks as he's had, just understanding his assignment within the offense, using that play strength that he has much better. So +2 for Aaron Banks. But then on the defensive side of the ball, it's weird because this defense isn't what it used to be, but at the same time, I feel like they're still playing pretty damn well for what they have to work with. Their talent base just has completely fallen off with injuries and guys leaving in free agency. It's really just Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, and I mean, Shavarius Ward's awesome, but he's missed a lot of time. So it's like they're getting a lot of guys to step up and play pretty well. And that's going to start with a guy I certainly had never heard of, so I'm sure most of you had never heard of him. Evan Anderson. He is a dude built like an air conditioning unit. He's 6'1", 325 to 335 pounds, depending where you're looking for your resources. But Evan Anderson has a 92.3 PFF pass rushing grade on 14 pass rush snaps. And when I saw that, and it was a guy I've never heard of, an undrafted pickup out of FAU, I went and watched his pressures on NFL Pro. And he's fun. He's got a really good first step for such a big guy, and he can definitely create some pocket push as a bull rusher, but also kind of penetrate a little bit, getting on guys' inside shoulders and cause some havoc in the backfield. So he's got 4 pressures and a sack on 14 pass rush snaps. It's been a small sample size, obviously, but he's interesting, and we had to create him in the Madden roster here at 65 overall. Nice starting point for a guy out of nowhere, but definitely a fun little guy to keep an eye on. Not a little guy, a fun big guy to keep your eye on. And then Jordan Elliott, he's playing the best ball of his career, doing a better job against the run than he really ever has. That's about all I have to say on Jordan Elliott as a role player on that D-line. But one guy that has really stood out to me is on the edge, Sam Okuwanu, +6, 63 to a 69. He played 100 snaps for Tennessee in 2022, so he's really been off the radar, but seems to be a nice find. I mean, he's a smasher on the edge. Probably never going to be a starter, but he's a weird body type, 6'1", 269 pounds. Like, he is a boulder. And he's doing a really good job against the run. He's been able to, push the pocket and get some pressures as well. At least play style-wise, he does remind me of Samson Ebukam, who they used to love, obviously, went to the Colts. Different body type, but just in terms of like full speed ahead, that high intensity play style that they love, and a nice weapon on loops and stunts and blitzes. He's just been a nice player for them. There's no way around it. So his playing time continues to increase to damn near starting levels, and we'll see where it goes from here. But I did want to give Fred Warner some more love. There's only so much room for Fred Warner to go up at this point. He goes up from a 95 to a 96, but basically just continues to widen that gap from Fred Warner to anybody else. In the first 4 weeks that he had, you got to go back to Luke Kuechly the last time we had any sort of 4-game sample size of linebacker play that great. I mean, some of the interceptions he has, just baiting quarterbacks, the peanut punch ability, the consistent run defense ability, making big stops in big moments. He's just so phenomenal, having another all-pro season. Unlike Devondre Campbell, they picked him up from Green Bay, and Devondre Campbell might be the first player in NFL history to benefit from a Joe Barry defense. That system really asked those linebackers to play a little bit more conservative, let guys come to you, keep everything in front of you. And, Campbell's length and speed and athletic ability, let him thrive in that situation. But here it's a different beast. I mean, they throw these linebackers into the mud. They ask them to read things out on the fly, oftentimes behind very skinny defensive lines where you're dealing with a lot more linemen coming to hit you. And he's just been horrible. He's gone back to the guy that was bouncing around the league, was available for Green Bay, right before the season started for free, basically, for a reason. And that's what he's looking like. He's older, too. He's 32 years old. He's dealt with some injuries, but he's missing tackles. That was another thing in Green Bay, was he was one of the most consistent tacklers during his breakout there. Not so much right now. He's missing 17.5% of his tackles. I mean, that's really bad for a linebacker. So he's coming down 4 for now, but could be due for an even steeper plummet in the next round of studs and duds. And with that, D. Winters has gotten a little bit more playing time lately. Now, he's the guy that didn't push Mahomes out of bounds on that big touchdown run that everybody's talking about this week. Kind of a low awareness play from D. Winters there. But beyond that, he's checked a lot of boxes. He's getting to the ball. He's made some run stops. I've always liked D. Winters. He's got great athleticism, great instincts. He's still learning the position. We're talking about going 65 to a 66 here, but wouldn't be overly surprised, although they do think Greenlaw, or they're hoping Greenlaw can get back for the playoffs. But, maybe in the next couple of weeks, they turn this over and go to D. Winters more over Campbell. Now, one area where the Niners defense is very different than years past is their secondary is really good, especially at cornerback. They have more depth than they've ever had. When a guy like Charvarius Ward goes down, they now have a bunch of dudes that can step up, and that's what we're seeing here. All these guys, Renardo Green, Diamador Lenore, Isaac Yiadom, all these guys going up. And I guess there's not too much more to say than that, other than these guys are holding up really well. I mean, different backgrounds. Renardo Green, the second-round rookie out of Florida State, seemed like a perfect fit from the get-go. He's played really well. I mean, Charvarius Ward wasn't a bad pro comp for him. So with Ward going down, Green gives them that kind of smasher on the outside that can press and play sticky man coverage on the outside. Diamador Lenore playing in the slot a lot. He's just been a really nice slot player since he moved inside. It feels like he gets a big pass breakup every week when I watch the Niners. And then Isaac Yiadom, the kind of journeyman that played great for the Saints last year, he continues to, kind of check boxes and climb up after a really rough start to his career. So they've just got a lot of depth there. It's really nice to see. But then to wrap up the 49ers, one of my biggest guys in this rookie class, safety Malik Mustafa, who I had as tied for the number one safety in this draft class with Tyke Smith for the Bucs. I mean, he's just so unbelievably fun. Now, it's only a +2, 71 to a 73, because it hasn't all been perfect. He's had some miscommunications on the back end, and he's missed a lot of tackles with his play style. And as much as I'm going to praise how hard he's hitting guys and his highlight tackles right now, I would love to see some balance there where he's not missing. Let's see, what's his missed tackle percentage right now? He's missing 22% of his tackles. Like that's too many. You get that down to like 15 with how hard you're hitting guys, you're in business there. So again, it hasn't been all perfect for him, but I just don't know that there is an enforcer at safety in the league right now like Malik Mustafa. And it's crazy to say that so few games into his career when there's a lot of safeties in the league, but I think Niners fans would agree with me. Like, there's just nobody in the league right now that it feels like every 5 plays with him on the back end, he is going to like detonate you. Like 99 Madden hit power type of stuff. Now, I know this is an actual Madden roster we're talking about. He's got 92 hit power right now, trending up. But I just think he's the heaviest hitter in the league right now, and we just don't get to see that too much in the league. But it brings a physical presence to this defense. It fires everybody up. I think it asserts their dominance basically on the opposing offense, knowing if you throw it to the flat or you try to run outside, the Niners have someone that will literally kill you. Now, he hasn't forced any fumbles yet. It does feel like only a matter of time where he hits you in the right place with the force that he's hitting guys, that he's going to start to force some turnovers off these big hits too. But it's just crazy how fast he triggers, how fast he comes downfield, and how good he is at laying the lumber. Again, you want to see him clean up the missed tackle rate a little bit. But he's not just one of these safeties from like 2005 that just was out there just to hit with really no athleticism or nuance to their ability as a coverage player. Like, he gets it from a coverage angle. Again, he's had some miscommunications, but he's got range as a deep free safety. He reads the quarterback's eyes. He had the pick on Geno Smith that, yes, was an overthrow. It was a good a lucky opportunity for him to be there, but he still had the range to get over pretty far to convert that interception. He had a beautiful pass breakup against the Cardinals as well. So like, he's got a little bit more to him as well from a coverage angle. So I still think like his upside is insanely high, and I really hope we get to see him with Talanoa Hufanga, because the Hufanga-Mustafa combo, I can already picture it. Like, the name combo is elite, but those two guys just have the type of aesthetic that you enjoy watching from the safety position. These guys are head-hunters. They are ball hawks. Like, I really hope Hufanga can get healthy and that we get to see that duo. Because let's face it, Jair Brown back there, fun player, but probably doesn't have the traits to be like a full-time starter for the Niners long-term. Might be a nice dime corner for them, or dime back, like an Evan Williams in Green Bay or something like that. But there's your 49ers. Let's move on to the LA Rams. Their super stud was a pretty easy choice. Jared Verse, the rookie edge rusher out of Florida State. He's just been so good, hitting the ground running. I mean, he was a very high floor player coming out. He's winning in the exact ways that you expected. He's got the power. He's got some swipes to, have just enough of a complement off of the bull rush. And it's just translating right away. What's funny about Jared Verse is he's missing like 33% of his tackle attempts right now. He's getting into the backfield. He's getting quarterbacks to get flustered and break the pocket. But he only has one sack. He's not converting. If he can start to do that, you're absolutely in business. Now, I think some of his, like, he's a little bit of a stiffer athlete in terms of bend and change of direction. I think there's something to that in the fact that he might never be a guy that can consistently get guys down. He's not like, there's something to be said for like a Hassan Reddick, for example, where he's a guy that's always converted a high percent of his pressures into sacks. Reddick is like incredibly fluid. You're seeing it with Will McDonald too. The same thing for the Jets. Like, some of these guys can really mirror and match the movement ability of these quarterbacks when they start to scramble. Verse maybe struggles a little bit with that, but he's beating his guys really well. I think he's like sixth. There's something in the NFL in pass rush win rate. Like, he's been an absolute hit for the Rams, and they're lucky they were able to get him where they did, because God, they need someone that can win one-on-ones other than Kobe Turner. And as a result, their pass rush has actually been solid. Not amazing, but solid. But let's talk about the offense before we go over to the defense. It's tough. There's just so many guys injured. So it's basically just guys getting opportunities because of the injuries that are going up, and then not a whole lot else to assess here. I do want to mention Matthew Stafford surrounding all of their offensive line fell apart and their receiving core fell apart. Surrounding that, Matthew Stafford has played really bad football. Well, not really bad football. I don't want to be too harsh on him, but I think he has, 3 big-time throws to 11 turnover-worthy plays. Like, he's definitely putting the ball in harm's way a lot more, and he hasn't had those opportunities to make those big plays. He's still, in that Lions game, I think showed, he can still do some really special stuff, and he's made some throws in some of these games just to get by. I thought he was impressive in the second half against the 49ers to kind of instigate that comeback a little bit, so I'm not ready to lower Matthew Stafford. I think the world of him and the tape he's putting out there. But if some of these guys start to come back, Kupp and Puka and some of these offensive linemen, and he continues to not play as well as he did last year, he is going to have to come down. I did want to just mention that. But some of these guys stepping up. Ronnie Rivers has, frustratingly to the chagrin of fantasy owners, has mostly kept Blake Corum off the field. Another kind of smaller I can't even call him a scat back, but this is their style. It's like the division plus contact balance style runners. So they like Ronnie Rivers. He's been all right on his carries. He was very lowly rated, so +4, 63 to a 67. Tutu Atwell, I mean, I'll give Tutu some credit for sure. Like, he's a nice piece. He's got really good route running. He gets open. He just has gotten lost in the sauce of all these different pieces that they've had, but he's had to step up. He's been their primary target, and he's made the most of these opportunities. I mean, he's really developed well with the Rams. He's a nice, like, wide receiver 3. Like, I'll stop there. He's a nice wide receiver 3. Just kind of use him in a very specific way because he's so tiny. He's not a guy that's going to win a lot of contested catches or beat a lot of press coverage, but yeah, he's a dangerous player over the middle of the field because he's just really hard to keep up with. And then Jordan Whittington, it's funny making this series. He literally filled because I use a template here, obviously, and just go team to team. It is the Juwan Jennings comp just continues to live on as on this template. I literally had to delete Juwan Jennings' name, who was the third player listed for the 49ers, to write Jordan Whittington. But that's who he is. He is the exact player in this offense. His average depth of target is like 7 or something like that. Most of his yards are coming after the catch. He's doing the dirty work underneath. He's blocking his ass off. He is literally Juwan Jennings. It is the most accurate pro comp I had this year and will have in a long time. I loved his tape for what he was at Texas. He was one of my guys. Saw the fit for the Rams, and I called my shot. I was like, second this guy gets on the field, he is going to be a nice wide receiver 3 for them. Unfortunately, the last couple of games, he's been off the field. He got hurt, but and that was something that held him back at Texas. But he's a good football player. He's a really solid player. Can do a lot of stuff with him in that kind of big slot wide receiver role. And then Tyler Johnson, finally, like, breaking through a little bit. He's struggled to stay on teams. He famously was like applauded as a steal for the Bucks, like a guy myself and many people really liked in the draft as like maybe a second, third round guy. His tape was really good at Minnesota. He was a nuanced route runner, big plays left and right. But he didn't test very well, and then had all these reports that he's kind of not a good guy. Well, I can't say he's not a good guy, but he's not like a great locker room guy in terms of like work behavior. Something was off, basically off the field, and that actually surfaced in Tampa Bay. Could never get on the same page as Tom Brady. They moved on from him pretty quickly, and he's had a hard time kind of landing. But he's got a clear opportunity here for the Rams and a great locker room. And if he's matured a little bit, there could be something here. He is their type, where he's not the fastest guy, but he's physical over the middle of the field. He runs good routes, pretty good after the catch. So, they're floating out all these Cooper Kupp trade rumors. I think they look at this and are potentially impressed with Tyler Johnson and Jordan Whittington and Tutu as like pieces around Puka. That would make sense to me. So we'll see how that ages, but he's played well when he's been given opportunities. Then on the offensive line, Alaric Jackson just continues to impress. He's, been very solid in pass protection. Undrafted dude out of Iowa. Just continues to get incrementally better, basically. So he's getting a +2. Even been run blocking a little bit better this year than he has. But on the opposite side, Rob Havenstein is... It's hard to say regressed. He's 32 years old, but I mean, we've been doing studs and duds for 5 years? It feels like for 5 years, Rob Havenstein has fluctuated from like 76 to 80 overall. And he's just like always in there, kind of streaky, nice player, obviously. So it's hard to say he's definitely regressing because he's been doing this for so long where he just kind of goes up and down. But he is going to go down here at 32 years old from an 80 to a 79. He's given up some pretty ugly pressures this year for sure. And then the center having to step in with those injuries to Avila and Jonah Jackson. Rookie Bo Limmer, exactly as advertised coming out of Arkansas, where his run blocking tape was phenomenal. He's probably one of the best run blockers in this draft, but his pass protection clearly needed a lot to work on. It's exactly who he's been for the Rams. He's been a very nice wide zone blocker and even pin and pull, like being that pivot guy on the nose tackle. He's done a good job with that too. He's got the play strength to do that as well. He's not just an undersized reach blocking center. So like he's been a very good run blocker. Pass pro, on the other hand, a lot of work to do with him in that regard. But let's talk about the defense. Actually, one more note before we do talk about the defense. Kevin Dotson, the right guard, they paid him. He doesn't have a lot of guys around him right now, but he has definitely not been as efficient as he was last year. I'm not ready to lower him yet, but him and Stafford are two guys we got to keep our eye on, guys that are not playing as well as last year, that if the team starts to get healthy and they continue to play poorly, will have to come down. But let's talk about the Rams defense, and I'm excited here especially to talk about Braden Fisk. So this is like the inverse of a lot of these rookies that I've talked about, how much I love them coming out. Braden Fisk, I was really not a fan of this pick. I thought he was a reach as a player, and I especially hated that they gave up their second-round pick this upcoming year to move up and take him. And this is where it always gets a little tough because, there's been some splash moments where Braden Fisk has made some plays. And I've had Rams fans coming at me like, hey, when are you going to, submit your Braden Fisk apology letter? And I think my track record shows that if that's what I believe, if I believe I was wrong, I will own up to it. And Fisk is going up here. He's getting +1 from a 68 to a 69. Obviously, I was very low on him with a 68 rating coming into the year for a top 50 draft pick with the hype that he had. But look, I've been watching Braden Fisk vigilantly. And I'm not going to apologize. I think he's actually been damn near exactly what I projected him to be, if not just a little bit better as a pass rusher, but so much better as a pass rusher. So he has 17 pressures on the season, yes. 7 of them came in a Niners game where they were all loops and stunts. He had a 67 PFF pass rushing grade in that game. So PFF agreed. It was like, yeah, he's getting some wins, but it's mostly just the scheme doing the work. And I said that about Fisk. I was like, he's a great guy for designed loops and stunts and stuff like that because he is quick. He's got a really nice athletic ability. And then you had kind of his biggest game where against the Chicago Bears, he had a PFF pass rush grade of 89.6. It came from two reps. He beats Nate Davis, who has since been benched, on a really nice swim move. I mean, yes, he can, when things click for Braden Fisk, as it tends to happen once a week, once every 2-3 weeks, as it happened at Florida State, it's pretty. He wins really quickly on a swim move. When he gets the right angle, he can do that. I said he can do that coming out, right? So that was, I think, the one really pretty pass rush snap that he's had this year. And then he had another play where he comes free on a loop, unblocked, and catches Caleb Williams on the blind side and gets a strip sack fumble when he's not looking. So the pass rush grade in that game is monster off of 2 snaps where he had 2 amazing plays in that game. And those were his 2 best plays on the season. His other 4 games, his PFF pass rush grades read 49 with 1 pressure, 47 with 3 pressures, 61 with 2 pressures against the Packers, 49 with 2 pressures. He's not impacting games from a pass rushing perspective consistently, other than the Niners game where their offensive line really struggled with their loops and stunts, where that pressure number was really high. Again, the pass rush grade was only 67 in that game. So PFF agreed, it's the scheme doing the work there. And that's before we talk about the run defense, where he's been one of the worst run defending defensive tackles in the entire league. And that was to be expected. I mean, he got driven back at Florida State. He's just too small. He's 6'3", 290 pounds. He's got these really short arms, so he struggles to stack and shed. And even when he does get out in space, he's missing 23% of his tackles. He struggles to wrap up. So, yes, the instant production was okay. He had 11 pressures in his first 3 games. Well, that's fallen off dramatically. I don't know, man. That was your Braden Fisk stock check. He's playing okay, but he's been essentially exactly what I described he would be, where he's basically at the caliber of a rotational defensive lineman that's really good on stunts and will win on some splash plays and is going to suck as a run defender. That's literally exactly what he's done, as I broke down. So I'm curious if Rams fans want to call me a hater and say I'm attached to my draft takes, or do you agree with me? Was this a bad pick to this point? And by the way, I try to be a little slow to react on rookies, but he's 25 years old. And you gave up a future second for him. The guy's supposed to be an impact for you right away. I just don't think he's consistently impacting games, man. So yeah, I'm very curious to see what people think about that take right there. I was excited to talk about it. I'm just spewing my honest opinion. I like the Rams. I have no reason to dislike Braden Fisk. I've never really understood the whole thing with him. All right. Also on the interior of the defensive line, Neville Gallimore playing all right, doing eating up some good run defense snaps. Athletic, somewhat highly drafted Dallas Cowboy that just didn't really have it early on in his career. We'll see where that goes. I don't know. But then Byron Young on the edge. I still don't think he's like this crazy efficient pass rusher, and I still believe the vast majority of his pressures are coming late in the play, not like high quality pressures, a lot of loops and stunts and stuff. And his pass rush win rate backs that up. But he did have his best pass rushing rep of his career, in my opinion, where he really showed like a move. That's the thing with Young, is he hasn't really won a lot of moves. He just kind of uses that speed and bend in pursuit. But he did break out a cross chop on Colton McKivitz, dominated him, and then I'm pretty sure on that play he had a strip sack as well. So he finally had a play, just one play where I was like, all right, like there's something there. Like it's just a matter of doing that more, because he just hasn't happened. But he's still been a solid player, deserves a little +1 here, and I would love to see him, start to, reach level 2 in terms of his pass rushing repertoire. Then into the secondary, Kobe Durant is playing on the outside, playing pretty well out there. Another one of these kind of undersized zone corners that's in a good spot. I would say he's been their best corner this year with Darius out, and Trey White, as we'll talk about, has been benched, and it's like Witherspoon and company, like they've really struggled in the secondary. But Kobe Durant's been pretty solid. I hope Darius Williams can get back out there healthy. It'd be really fun to see these two guys play opposite of each other. Kobe Durant, like Star Thomas earlier, was another guy compared to Darius Williams. So it'd be fun to see those two guys out there together. But then, Tre'Davious White, benched for financial reasons plus his play on the field. He was getting cooked left and right. I don't know that he's got it anymore. I really don't. I mean, there's been like the occasional play this year where he jumps a route and you're like, yeah, he still has the IQ, but he's just, even on those plays, he's not quite getting there on time. And then the big plays he was giving up, it just sucks. I mean, injuries stacked up. Obviously, the Bills move on from him, and it was the right decision. He just can't really play anymore, and he's still a 74 overall based on his track record this was an all-pro corner like 3 years ago, but his fall off has been just an avalanche. And the Rams have really taken a risk-forward approach when it comes to injuries, and it's the waves that they've endured. It's wild. I mean, they win the Super Bowl, and then the next year the team is all beat up and they get like the 6th pick or whatever. Then the next year somehow everybody stays healthy and they're great. And then this year it's like, yep, everyone's hurt again. They build this team in a way, it's kind of poetic in a sense that, some years it's worked for them, some years it hasn't. But obviously it's the risk has shown up, not the reward on the Trey White signing. And then Cam Curl also going to come down. He's another guy that's had a bit of a fall from grace, was a playmaking safety for Washington a couple years ago, but not the best year last year. The Rams were betting on getting the old Cam Curl. Not so much. He's probably had the worst year of his career. He's tied for 6th in yards allowed for safeties and is tied for the most touchdowns allowed back there. Just has been a problem for them in coverage. So he's got to come down 78 to a 76, very much living off of a couple of good years early in his career as a 7th-round pick for Washington at this point. And that, we're pretty far removed from that at this point. And then one last guy, the punter, Ethan Evans, having a very good year towards the top of the league in hang time and grading for punters. But let's get to our final team here, the Seattle Seahawks. We have another franchise young left tackle as their super stud, Charles Cross, really coming on this year. Last year was rocky after a good rookie year. I know he dealt with some injuries, but he's fully healthy this year. He's been absolutely fantastic in both phases, too. Like, coming out, we figured he would be a pretty damn good pass protector, and he's been that this year. Just so technically sound, so smooth with it. And then as a run blocker, he's really come on as well. And there were flashes of that at Mississippi State, but he played in a program that was very much that 2-point stance, spread style system. So he's had to learn how to run block a lot more. And he absolutely has done that as well. So, I mean, just total heading in the right direction after it really was a lot of ups and downs last year for Charles Cross. For those watching, he had some ugly moments, some great moments, but it's been pretty much all great moments for Charles Cross this year. You love to see it. But next up, we've got Geno Smith getting a +1. Still has those kind of inconsistent moments, the overthrow against the Niners. Can have some hot and cold moments at times, but he really just has continued to blow me away. His pocket presence, dude, that's what it always comes back to for me for Geno. Even when things are a little bit off or they don't have answers for things, he finds them by navigating pressure. Some of these performances he's had that we've talked about on the Fully Inflated Football podcast, where you had Aiden Hutchinson, 15 pressures, but 0 sacks. You had, Bosa had 15 pressures and 0 sacks. Like, his ability to feel that out, avoid it, and then have big scrambles, make big throws on the run. It's just so impressive, but he doesn't always just scramble either. Like, sometimes he's resettling in the pocket, making big throws down the field. His arm talent, his accuracy is so spectacular. Just with the very occasional overthrow, the overthrow against that Mustafa picked off, for example. It's like, it feels like when his overthrows come, they come at the worst moments. But I still have just been so impressed by Geno Smith. I think he's really the primary reason that the Seahawks are any good at all this year, because the O-line's really struggled outside of Charles Cross. And as we'll talk about, these wide receivers haven't lived up to their namesake either. So he's just been fantastic. And then Kenneth Walker, he's going to go up 85 to an 86. Got to stay on the field. But when he's out there, he's probably the only guy that's somewhat close. Well, Christian McCaffrey. But I was going to say somewhat close to what Jahmyr Gibbs brings in terms of like that crazy, like elite tier athletic ability that just gives you something that most running backs don't have. His ability to weave around the defense, to win the angle, it's just different with Kenneth Walker. And even if his vision is spotty at times and he's not the biggest guy in terms of like power running, oftentimes it doesn't even matter. Like, he just has these crazy runs. So he's just a really special player. They've had some of their best moments when he's been on and healthy. So he's trending towards being, really one of the better running backs in the league. It's just like we need a little bit more sample size and production and durability from him. But I am actually going to lower DK Metcalf. -1, nothing crazy here. He's still having a pretty solid season because of a lot of the big plays. But I tweeted this out. DK Metcalf, the guy in the gym that, looks like a professional bodybuilder, he leads the NFL in contested catch targets, as you would probably want to use a guy that looks like this. I mean, he looks like a defensive end. When you get in a pinch, throwing the ball, that kind of stuff. He's 6'4". But, rightfully so, he leads the league in contested catch targets, 55 over the last 2 years. But he has a 29% contested catch win rate. You compare that to Drake London, who has 51 contested catch targets over that time, so 4 less than DK Metcalf. He's converting 55% of his contested looks. That's twice more than DK Metcalf. So he has been a huge market deficiency in terms of how he's used and how he's able to convert in these big moments. A lot of these deep throws and contested catch looks, those are high leverage spots where Geno's in trouble and he needs him to make a play for him, or, you're taking a shot play, you're using a down to get a shot play, and he's not able to come down with some of these balls. And it's just, to me, it's an awareness and a ball tracking issue for him. It's the ball's in the air and he doesn't slow his pace to put himself in the right spot. Or his size sometimes can lead to him having a hard time kind of flipping around, and he doesn't have the best body control either because he is so big and heavy. But you still would expect him to use his strength to outmuscle these guys, use more subtle push-offs, show more awareness in those situations. I mean, that's something Drake London's so good at. Okay, ball's coming, subtle push-off. They never call that. DK doesn't feel like he does that. So it's just disappointing to see that. He basically was a key reason they lost that Giants game. just wasn't able to come down with catches in big spots. So even if he's got some good baseline production, he's like towards the top of the league in targets, and he's going to have those big explosive plays. It's not that he's bad, right? It's just that he's been a little disappointing in some areas. So he's got to come down. And then I put Jackson Smith and Jigba on here just a victory lap a little bit, honestly. I mean, I felt like I was the lead. I led the charge on pushing back on Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I still said he was going to be a solid player. He was my, wide receiver 3 in that draft class behind Quentin and Zay Flowers, but he was kind of the consensus wide receiver 1. He got some Justin Jefferson comps. A lot of people called him the steal of the draft. It's been a long time that people have been saying, this is a superstar wide receiver. And I've really always been like, best case scenario is Amon-Ra St. Brown if he's a badass. Otherwise, he is Sterling Shepard, like solid slot guy. And that's really what he's been, is solid slot guy. But frankly, he's holding this team back. I'll say it. He's 9th in the NFL in targets. Out of 105 receivers this year, he's 82nd in yards per route run. So that's a huge deficiency right there. He's the 9th most targeted receiver in the NFL, but he's 82nd in efficiency. And then he's 69th in PFF receiving grade. He's 71st out of 105 in contested catch win rate. And then still 45th in yak per reception, which for what he's supposed to be, like if you're comparing him to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's like always top 10, like he's not even that explosive after the catch. He's literally just a fine player. He's cleaned up the drop issues, which you love to see. But again, not explosive, not a deep threat, doesn't have big size to win contested catches. He's like a smart dude that can sit underneath, run some short routes, be a nice slot player. But I didn't have to lower him, but I had him as a 75 overall. A lot of people were mad because for the Madden roster, I give like my dev trait change suggestions. Madden has him as a star development, and I said, no, flip him to normal. Like, I don't know that he's going to be much better than he's been. And now a year and a half into his career, where we're talking about a guy that was supposed to be this like super high floor kind of, Amon-Ra St. Brown type. When's it going to happen? Because everybody blamed Shane Waldron. Jackson Smith and Jigba blamed Shane Waldron. And, okay, he's 9th in targets, but he's not doing anything with it. So, I don't know. I just put the little shrug there. I didn't have to lower his rating. I don't think he's been worse than a 75 overall. But based on how people talk about him, I just feel like it's about time where I've been justified to push back on the hype. And I honestly wish I pushed back on the hype further. It was maybe a case where I let the consensus opinion and the hype on him, even I overrated him because of how much people were talking on him. But I'm glad I pushed back on it a little bit. I told Ravens fans that were crying when they didn't get JSN. I was like, no, you didn't get the consolation there. Zay Flowers went the pick after JSN. You didn't get the consolation. I think you got the better player. And that has absolutely come to fruition. And hey, maybe Quentin Johnston can get back on the field, keep building some stuff, and maybe he can even pass JSN. And my wide receiver rankings that year all come true. But I don't know. I wanted to spend some time on that one way or another. And, you can say I'm full of myself and a JSN hater, but that's kind of what the series is all about. And wanted to go there. But let's move on and talk about the rookie tight end, A.J. Barner out of Michigan. He's doing his job. They're not asking too much of him. They have Noah Fant there. But yeah, he's blocking really well. He was, in my opinion, the best blocking tight end, or at least the most polished blocking tight end in the class. And I would say he's lived up to that high floor pedigree. He's caught every ball thrown his way so far. He's been a nice tight end too, which is what they drafted him to be. So a little love for him. And then some other guys on the offensive line are going down. Stone Forsythe is done. They put him on IR. I don't know if that's to save his confidence or if he's actually hurt. He was probably the worst offensive lineman in the league for the first 7 weeks of the year. He's getting a -4 from a 65 overall. Like, he's unplayable. Just been so brutal. And then the right guard, Anthony Bradford, who they had hopes for, they continue to have hopes for. I don't get it at this point. Put frickin' Christian Haynes out there. He's been so much better in both phases. Was such a more talented prospect. They were both 4th-round picks. I don't get why they continue to play Bradford. I hope that changes soon for Geno Smith's sake. But the development has not been there for him. He's got to go in the wrong direction here. But let's talk about the defense a little bit. Jerron Reed's having, again, a really good year. He kind of like, he's like a fine wine. He only gets better with age. He's not the splashiest player, not the most incredible athlete, but he's just good in both phases. He's been their best interior player probably. Well, Leonard Williams is having a good year too. But I would say with Byron Murphy getting hurt, Jerron Reed, it's been nice that they've been able to lean on Jerron Reed. He's been very solid in both phases. But then out to the edge, Derek Hall. I'm so happy for Derek Hall because I couldn't believe my eyes what we saw last year. For one, he couldn't really get on the field in a pretty mediocre edge room. But when he did get on the field, I mean, he didn't do anything. He would fall over himself, generated no push. He was really inefficient, and there was a reason he wasn't playing last year. So it's just great to see him be the guy he was at Auburn. I mean, he was a really nice player. He was a top 40 draft pick for a reason, and just a ton of power. He's got that really nice profile where he's shorter, but he's got long arms, and he's really powerful. He's putting that to good use, and I think Mike Macdonald's system just does a better job overall, making sure everybody gets one-on-ones with how they craft their front. But this isn't just, Mike McDaniels is making Derek Hall good. No, like Derek Hall is making Derek Hall good. He's winning his one-on-one reps and dominating. And he's coming off his best performance against the Falcons, a game-wrecking day. Just really happy to see it. And I hope he continues to trend up. And then Boye Mafe as well has impressed me this year. He's just got a really nice pass rushing tool belt, man. He hasn't really developed the power that you maybe would have hoped a guy with his frame and his size could, but he doesn't necessarily need it. I think that would be what would help him take the next step. But he's got cross chops, he's got spins, he's got inside counters. He's really done a good job, because coming out of Minnesota, I felt like all he really had was the cross chop. He's now leveraging the fact that, tackles know that's coming. He's leveraging that to win in other ways as well. And it's turning into a really nice edge duo. And these guys, I think, are really still just getting started, because Byron Murphy, I think, is someday going to be their best defensive lineman. And then you can have these two guys. It's kind of like a thunder and lightning approach with maybe the best schemer in terms of getting guys in the right matchups. This I hope is just the beginning for Seattle of what could be a really dangerous pass rush soon. And then into the second level, Tyrel Dotson's going to go up, kind of getting that full starting opportunity. Showed his good flashes in Buffalo for sure. But he's been a nice, balanced overall linebacker. He's not the first guy to the ball necessarily in run defense. I think still developing in that sense. But he's cleaned up his missed tackle rate, which is the biggest reason he's going up here from what he did in Buffalo. He missed a lot of tackles. So just, a little bit better technique, a little bit better positioning there. And in coverage, he continues to be kind of a decent enough cover linebacker, nothing special. But, he's been a good signing, just to give them a nice baseline at linebacker there. And then they did go and trade for Ernest Jones. I wanted to talk about that briefly. He's played okay for Tennessee. He hasn't popped like he has for the Rams. But obviously the double trades, not really valued all that highly. Something's up there. If he gets to Seattle and isn't really playing well, I will probably be lowering him, but I'm kind of optimistic that he will play well there. So I didn't want to go there, but I just wanted to mention, it's an interesting situation to monitor. But then into the secondary, these guys have really struggled. Their backups have had to come in and play. Nehemiah Pritchett, a rookie out of Auburn that I really liked, but he struggled early in his career here. Just doesn't look like he knows what he's doing out there, frankly. He's been one of the harder corners to watch this year. And then Trey Brown as well has just been giving up big plays, man. He's just an inconsistent dude in general. So, those guys had to come down for how they've played. But fortunately, Julian Love on the back end has been so good in this system. Last year I called Julian Love a little bit overrated just because I didn't think he was a Pro Bowl player when Antoine Winfield should have been in, and that kind of made me upset, rightfully so. But I do think Julian Love's a good player in his own right. But I will say this year, I feel like he's making even more like splash plays, like highlight reel type of stuff happen. Just seems to be a little bit faster to the ball and just around the ball more. I feel like, I felt like last year he got the interception numbers, which are always fun and nice on the stat sheet, but it seems like he's doing a little bit more in terms of run defense, tackling consistency, being in the right place at the right time. Just really, really a good fit in this system. So into the 80s now for Julian Love. And by the way, he's still new to safety. He was a slot corner for the longest time. So very reasonable to think a guy that I think has athletic traits and really good work ethic is just getting a lot better at this too. So ending it on a positive note for Seattle. That's going to do it for the NFC West. I'm going to keep grinding at this. It's starting to shape up more like we're going to have some studs and duds next week too. These are taking a little bit longer than I anticipated, and coming off the vacation this weekend, I didn't really get to get started until late Tuesday night. So, yeah, we'll see about that. But hope you guys enjoy. Please, again, hit that like button on the way out. It really does help me out. Let me know if you think I missed anybody, and comment for the algorithm to help support the series. But yeah, we'll see y'all soon. Peace out.